probably pretty knowledgeable. How old is he? About 60?
Yeah.
64, I think he said the other day on the internet. We did a show yesterday on the smart meters.
Oh yeah? Are they really that smart?
Well, I understand that they have the capabilities of turning you into a microwave puzzle.
Well, you know what? Since
So
I've had
they must know something.
since I've had mine at my house, I can't sleep at night, and I have headaches, and of course, you know, I usually get the same thing with a girlfriend. So
Sounds like you'll be
Are you ready?
part of the class action to change it. Pretty close.
Well,
Can you give me 30 seconds? Can I put something in front of that camera?
yeah. What do you want?
Like what? Oh, a coffee cup. No. Bottle of water. How about this camera? This newspaper.
Here, just put a speaker in front of it.
Okay, perfect. More better.
go.
Okay, greetings, folks. Stephen, Captain Truth Dempsey. Friday afternoon. I heard one talk show host earlier today. He has some music. Friday, Friday, Friday. And it's supposed to be the best day of the week. Well, I tell you, if you don't enjoy what you're doing, as far as I'm concerned, do something else. Friday's another day, and it goes into another day for me, which is Saturday and Sunday. And I do whatever I think needs to be done, no matter what day it is. And since I stumbled across something that I found particularly interesting, we're going to have a guest today, I think at 1:05. Eli Siegel is his name. He's a writer for the Las Vegas Sun. It appeared to me, it was a local number, and he answered the phone, and he said he'd give us a call about 1:05. I asked him to. I'm going to give him about, I'll offer him at least 5 or 10 minutes, or basically however long it takes for him to explain to you his research and, you know, how he came to write these articles. They're on the foreclosure crisis that Nevada is facing. I'm sure it's the way Eli would probably prefer it was phrased. For me, it's a Nevada foreclosure scam. I explained to him, and we'll be talking about it. Sounds like he will comment about it. It sounds like we may have some forthcoming articles possibly in the Sun, I hope. For those of you who don't know, I've been actively involved in the securitization foreclosure scam that the banks are running. You know, Bank of America, they just, they've been violated or been accused of impropriety so many times. But, you know, they just keep figuring out a way to keep on doing it because it's so lucrative. And it only costs them 5 or 10% of what they steal. But that's, you know, evil will always destroy itself, folks. And they taught me in law school that you always have a remedy. Now, for those of you who are new to my audience, my constitutional law instructor said, Stephen, you may get yourself in a situation sometime where you're doing everything right, and the political hacks or the forces of evil, or I don't even remember how she described the other side, but they are just not going to let you win, even though you're doing everything right. We've heard a lot about that with Clark, and it's his experience with a cashier's check, which is supposed to be the functional equivalent of cash, unless they don't want to give you the cash, unless they got somebody that they prefer to give the cash to, I guess. There must be an asterisk on that section of the law that nobody can find. When I used to work with Ernst Schiff, he used to always tease, that's in the unwritten law books, that regulation or that asterisk, you know, or it's an unwritten law. I'm sorry, I jumped ahead. It's an unwritten law. And then Irwin used to say, well, where do I find those unwritten laws? Well, of course, they're in the unwritten law books. Okay. I'll tell you, folks, if you aren't having fun in this world, If you aren't having a good time, you're doing something wrong. Do your best. And that's what Judy DeGennaro told me in the constitutional law class and all my classmates. If you get yourself in a situation where they are not going to let you win, the last thing you do is pitch your bitch to the public. Now, I'm comfortable with saying that because that's the way she said it in law school, the class. You pitch your bitch to the public. And if the public doesn't care, then go someplace else because those people aren't worth trying to help. If they don't care, what difference does it make? You're just bugging the pig. There was a joke like that. I forgot how it goes, but don't try to teach a pig to sing. You can't do it, and you're just bugging the pig. That's it, right? If they are going to let you win, if they say the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, all that was just hogwash, and it doesn't apply to you, and forget about that. And they just aren't going to recognize it. Then go someplace else. Those people don't care whether they live in a free country. That tyranny is perfectly acceptable for them. So let them sleep in their own beds, the one they created. So that's my sermon for the day. Thank you, folks. Thank you for being here. I'm just teasing, of course. Eli, if you happen to, I don't remember if I gave you the radiotribune.com address or not. If you happen to be listening to the show, now's the time to call. I know he's going to call in a minute or two anyway. And the gentleman that participated yesterday, just Chris, on the show that I did on the smart meters, that he and I did, mostly just he did, but I was here, and I asked him a few questions. I heartily suggest you go back and listen to that in the archives. It's an important show. I was a little amazed. I didn't realize, are these smart meters dangerous? Well, Chris announced the revelation yesterday that all they have to do is crank it up full blast, and it'll turn you into a microwave puddle. I guess that could be conceived as dangerous, but don't worry. That this is high-tech Chinese equipment, and the Chinese are our friends. They would never do anything to hurt us. That is, as long as we keep paying the interest on whatever they say we owe them. Of course, if we stop paying that, I don't know what could happen in that spot. But it sounds like we've got a caller. I'll hope it's Eli, I'm sorry, and then I'll introduce him and let him speak to you about the revelation that he has made. Good afternoon. This is your wake-up call. Is this Eli?
It is, yes.
Yes, Eli Siegel, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, right. Well, I'll just let you, I know I found your article in the Las Vegas Sun yesterday, and you sent me another one, backup. You said it was a little more in depth. Why don't you take 5 minutes or so, or however long you're comfortable with, and explain to you how you were given the, well, I hope you enjoyed it. This is the task or the opportunity to write on this subject, and some of the people that you talked to and what they had to say. If you would, please.
Sure, you want me to go over how I reported the story?
Well, I always like to start at the beginning. Somebody, I've never worked in a newspaper, so I imagine your boss said, Eli, we'd like you to do a story on this or that, or how did it come about?
Yeah, it started actually back in October. That's how I initially started working on it in the middle of October, because I got a press release from the Greater Las Vegas Association of Realtors announcing that they were having a membership luncheon, a few days later after they had sent out the press releases coming up in a couple days. And they were holding a luncheon over at the SLS, and they were going to have some members of the Las Vegas Metro Police Department there to talk about this new anti-squatters law, Assembly Bill 386, that had just taken effect on October 1 of last year. It was approved by the legislature last summer, I believe, or sometime last year, and then Governor Sandoval signed it into law I think around June or July of last year. And so they brought in all these police officers to talk about, lieutenants and the other officers talk about what the law is and how it can impact. And they really talked that day, if I remember correctly, how it would impact realtors and the impact that it would have on real estate agents. And so while I was there, I thought it was real fascinating because I have a real estate to the sun, so I include housing and commercial real estate. And I've heard about squatters over the last few years. I haven't heard anything in great depth about squatters in the last couple of years. Whether it's a very pervasive problem or exactly what squatters do in the housing market. I haven't heard any of those details. So when I went there that day to officers, I got to hear from them.
Clark, you can join the show if you want.
What goes on
Someone's
in the house.
but you're under here.
And that's really what got me started on it. So I
So
started
you wanna
talking to
jump
cops
Jump
at the
in.
luncheon, and I just kind of went from there. And so I started doing more interviews, started interviewing police officers, real estate agents, property managers, residents, people who live near these houses, and that's how it kind of all started.
So did you contact anybody outside of Nevada, or what actually is your background into the foreclosure securitization process? I think is what really got it started.
I didn't talk to anyone outside of Nevada for this story. We were really just focused on Las Vegas. I didn't talk to anybody in Reno for that matter. It's just really just in the Vegas Valley for that particular article. And but I talked to a range of people. It was, like I said, real estate agents, homeowners, police officers. Because there are a couple cops. One of them has been promoted and moved to a different department. But there were two cops in particular up in Metro's Northwest area who were very active in going after squatters. So I spent some time with them and talked to them quite a bit about the squatter problem in Las Vegas.
Up in the Northwest area, you say?
Yep, that's correct. The Northwest area of Las Vegas gets the most calls for service for squatters than any other area command for Metro.
And they were helpful in explaining it to you. That
Oh, definitely.
because I know that my experience is I accepted the responsibility of 6 different homes, trying to protect them from illegal foreclosures or unlawful foreclosures. And one of the first ones was in the Northwest.
Yeah.
And the policeman that came out, I remember the day very well. It was a hot day in August, and we had a hearing that morning, and we went to court, and they just decided to continue the proceedings, and we came home, and the locks were changed on the house.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. The police came. I showed them all the legal paperwork. They said, "Wow, you were in court this morning?" "Yeah." And they said, "And you came home and the locks are changed?" I said, "That's the way it is." Of course, the policeman went out to his police car, sat there for at least 10 or 15 minutes, contacting whoever he was sharing the information with, and he took the legal paperwork with him. He came back and he gave us the paperwork back, and he says, what do you plan to do about the locks being changed? I said, "Well, we have access to a locksmith. It won't be any problem changing it back, but we aren't trying to hide anything from you." And he says, "Look," he says, "that sounds like a good plan." He says, I'll fill out a report. If we can help you in any way, if you need us back here because of anything else going wrong, please give us a call." So I know that we started on the right road. I don't know how, as I explained to you very briefly when I first started talking to you, or when I asked you to be on the show, I haven't got really my finger on what is happening here. I have friends in California, and I'll certainly hook you up with them if the Sun decides that it's worthy of more articles by you. I hope it is. You'll talk to a friend of mine that is the office manager for a law firm, and the last time I talked to him, they haven't lost a case yet. I had 6 cases. I didn't win any of them. I was working with an attorney in downtown Las Vegas that was, we'd all went to the same, or had the same material. Basically, the material comes from a gentleman named Neil Garfield out of Florida. And he worked for the banking industry for years and years and years. His family was well-respected politicians in Florida. The way I remember it right, he was one of the top trial attorneys in Florida. And he came out of retirement because he saw what these people were trying to do to his country. And he wasn't going to allow it. So, and the people in Florida and California haven't lost a case yet. Can you think of any reason why a licensed attorney with the same material is being used, the same material that is being used in California, brought cases in Nevada, what, 36 and 31, 37 cases, and while in California all those cases are being won, in Nevada, 0 for 37.
Yeah, I have no idea. I don't know any details about these cases you're talking about. I don't know.
Not yet, at least.
For this story, we didn't get into the litigation behind foreclosures and, whether there are any contested foreclosures or anything like that. We didn't get into that at all for this story. The main focus was states has a squatter problem. Here's what it's like to live near squatters and what's being done to address squatters and what kind of people squat in these houses. Those are the main things that we touched on for the story.
Oh, super. I'll admit I haven't read all of it yet. Perhaps we'll do a follow-up next week. I know we'll have to if we get any news on the Bundy situation. I do have Michelle Fiore that's agreed or tentatively agreed to give us an update on that, or the attorney that we had on, Joel Hansen. So we may get a call here, and if we do, I'm hopeful that you'll just accept a small break in the middle of the show or something whenever it comes through, because that is important to a lot of people, or to my listening audience. As far as the people that are doing that, I'm going to introduce you in a second, Chris. I want to make one more statement, and then I'll go to another guest that I'm not springing this on Eli. A friend of mine that I mentioned to Eli when I asked him to come on the show, who has done extensive research into this area like I have. As far as the people that are doing this, I know I was called a squatter. Well, Eli, I graduated in the top third of my law school class. I worked the last 2 years of law school for one of my professors. So I don't consider myself a real stark raving lunatic. I did very well, and I scored well, and I know the law, and I know how to read case law, and not that I'm right all the time, but I think that the people that I've lived besides, they never had any problems with me. I wasn't there to cause them problems. Okay, I'll just make that disclosure there. And then I want you to say hello to Eli, if you would, Chris. Chris is a friend of mine that was here yesterday. I mentioned that at the start of the show. We did a expose on the smart meters yesterday. I hardly encourage people to go back to the archives and find that show. I thought it was a humdinger, Chris. You did a real good job. And I asked you to be available today, and you're here. If you'd like to explain your background and how you feel, if you have any thoughts on this foreclosure situation that we face in Nevada, I know I'd like to hear it.
Well, thank you so very much. And Eli, I certainly appreciate your attending this call today, and it's certainly my pleasure to be here on with a learned gentleman of your caliber, and it's really an extreme pleasure. For one thing, I want to let you know that I am probably going to be at that hearing. It's supposed to be at 3 o'clock, so I might depart the call up just a little bit early to get there promptly. Also, I am very studied in the Public Policy Acts of Congress that provide the CFPA and the FDCPA, FCRA, TCPA, Tyler Rispin, and a number of the other protective measures. And
little slower, Chris. You gotta take us through that again. That was a lot of information in one sentence.
Well, my apologies, I'm sure Eli is probably likewise. When we study this stuff as intently as we do, it seems the legal mercenaries prefer if we articulate the stuff in a quick, rapid fashion. But for those who aren't as quick as Eli, I am studied in FDCPA, FCRA.
What is that? No.
The Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, the
Okay.
Fair Debt Reporting Act, the Telephone Call Protection Act, the Truth in Lending Act, and the Real Estate Mortgage Settlement Procedures Act.
Very good. So you're familiar with that, and you've studied this. You said something about the pretender lenders. What's that about?
Well, whenever someone buys a debt from an originator, we won't even talk about whether the original loan was credible and authentic or not, a hypothecation of debt, but whenever they transmit that document to some other purchaser for value or other consideration, it then changes the nature of the instrument. Part of the measures required for transmitting that document is to bifurcate, separate the note from the deed of trust. And it's my understanding, if they're entered into MERS and perhaps other vehicles, they must destroy the actual promissory note, the instrument that is the security for it, that the other instrument, the deed of trust, is dependent upon to have authenticity to it. And whenever they sell and transmit that note to some other for debt collection, other than the originator, it then becomes a securitized mortgage investment vehicle for debt collection. And it transmutes from UCC3, which is the instruments, promissory notes and instruments, and then it moves to 8 and 9, which are secure investments, because they become your gamblers, investors, predatory speculators who are trying to capitalize on the misgivings and unfortunes of people who debts have already been satisfied, settled, or discharged, or paid under insurances by the originator, actuarial protection agent. And so therefore they've already gotten most of their value out of it, and they seek to enrich themselves egregiously by selling it to debt collectors or maybe other friends they transmit it to share the proceeds should they collect again, and share in a quid pro quo arrangement of secret.
Chris, there were some allegations that they were selling other than the original notes and deeds of trust, since you made reference to that they were destroyed because it'd be hard to prove without the original documents. So they were selling copies of the notes and deeds of trust multiple times, so that you don't really know whether the person that is alleged to be foreclosing on your property has ever had any real interest in it or not, or whether they are the real party in interest. Is that a fair statement?
Well, there are only two parties that would be of interest. Those were the two parties that were at the alleged signing table at the time the negotiation or contract was consummated. And so, other than that, there can be no other real parties. Yes, there are agents within the company that may have made the contract, although there are a lot of different relationships that can appear, and a lot of them aren't quite honest whenever someone represents themselves to be a bank, and then they, in that case, as a true apparent lender, we'll put it that way, issues credit, although you are truly the signer of the document, the one that puts the energy in and becomes a security, the true creditor for the loan. They then create the illusion that you're a debtor by creating hypothecating debt called table from the phone. And many times these are dealers, broker agents that are vested and have a self-interest and maybe do add-on insurances or other wealth enriching schemes that they offer at the signing table to try to further enrich themselves. And so anyone that's not an original true party of the originating instrument company, we'll put it that way, that then sells that, and many times they are sold before the ink is even on the paper or dry on the paper, to to typically fellow investors, perhaps family investors might be a term that would be current for that. And they're speculators, and they don't disclose that fully, and that certainly accounts for fraud and theft by deception whenever you're not truly clear and fully transparently disclosing all the terms and parties to a contract. When it was consummated, you think that you're dealing with a person that's sitting before you representing the entity that you think you're doing business with, but it's really somebody that's not disclosed. It's the true so-called funder for the loan, or at least the buyer of the paper that you've generated.
Yeah, that's pretty much my understanding. I know I remember when Neil Garfield came out with one of his email blasts, and it said that he felt that this, don't worry folks, the securitization process or problem, the debt crisis problem, will be over in somewhere between 60 and 65 years from now. That was about 10 years ago, or about, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. So I guess we've got about 57 or 58 more years of it to go. And the reason for that, folks, is that by then everybody who was an aggrieved party will have probably passed away. Eli, I'd like to get your first thoughts on, have you heard any of this? If not, how do you feel towards this? Does this sound like an interesting story that you might want to consider being involved if people at the Sun newspaper decided to assign you to it?
You know, I have to learn more about it.
Of course.
I really don't know much about, beyond just very general basics about, investors buying deeds of trust and that sort of thing. It's a pretty specific, complex thing, which, I'm sure if there were a good story there that we could write about, but I'd have to learn a little bit more about first, so I'm just not really sure.
Of course. I mean, that would go without saying. I would expect that. I've said on this show many times, one of our biggest problems in our country, as far as I'm concerned, is the fact that we take at face value what we're told. Don't believe anything I say. Not because I lied to you. You found out I didn't tell you something that was true. Come back and explain it to me, because I guarantee you I didn't lie to you. I told you what I thought the truth was. But Chris and I did a show earlier in the week, and we talked about the wake up call segment, or where I got the original idea of making it a wake up call. When did I forget what the question was. When did the dictatorship actually get started in this country? And it's going to be a different day for everybody. You remember that, Chris? I think you said you thought it started with Abraham Lincoln. Well, of course, none of us were around then. I was more interested in my wake-up call, of course, was Oklahoma City and 9/11. We have to learn, if we're going to remain free in a country without tyranny and preserve this constitutional republic, we're going to have to learn to ask questions and stand up for the truth. Is that a fair evaluation, Eli? I don't know how old you are. Why don't you give us some idea what your background is in journalism?
Sure. Well, 34 years old. I've been in journalism just about 10 years, I'd say. I started writing. I got into journalism in the summer of 2006. So yeah, just almost 10 years ago, and worked at some community newspapers in San Jose, California. I originally grew up right near San Jose, right outside it. And so worked there for
You left California? Come on now. Nobody leaves California.
Yeah, I was there for about a year, and then I went to journalism school in Maryland, University of Maryland, right outside D.C. So I did that for about a year and a half, 2 years. And then I worked in New Jersey for a little while, covering the New Jersey State House in Trenton. And then moved back to California. I worked for a weekly business paper in San Jose for about 2.5 years. And then after that, I moved to Vegas. I moved here in summer of 2012 to work for the Sun, and I've been here ever since.
You having a good time?
Yeah, it's been good. It's Vegas is an interesting place. It takes a while to get used to, I think. But
I'll agree with that. I've been here 4 years of law school, but I've been here the rest of the past 45.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't like Missouri. That's where I grew up.
Yeah.
A 21-year-old kid coming here from Missouri, it was a different world.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's different, but it's good, you know, there's a lot of fun things to do out here, so it's not bad, so.
There's a lot of, I don't know, maybe you haven't formed that opinion yet. My opinion is there's a lot of good people here that it just seems like they're a little harder to find.
I suppose, it probably depends on, what your circle of friends are.
Exactly, who you surround yourself with.
Yeah, where you work and that sort of thing, so it depends on
Hello?
kind of figure out every day, but.
Tell us about the Sun since you got there. There was some, had they already went to the dual publishing at that point, or?
Oh, yeah, they've been over here, yeah.
Okay, so
That's predates me by a long time.
okay. And how is it, what's your average day entail? Kind of somebody that might be thinking about getting into journalism, who knows?
I mean, the typical day is, we always have a handful of stories that we're working on at any given time. So it's pursuing those stories, talking to people. We always have deadlines every day, so making sure we hit our deadlines. If there's something, breaking news item that happens during the day, you got to jump on that and juggle your other stories and whatnot with the breaking news. So it's just a lot of juggling and a lot of time on the phone, a lot of research online. And for me, since I cover real estate, I drive around, not every day, but it's a fair amount to visit different properties and check out different buildings and pieces of land and that kind of stuff. So it's all decent amount of time driving around the valley. So.
Does the Sun ever get involved in kind of divergence of opinions regarding different articles? In other words, one person has one opinion on how it should be written and another guy comes to a different conclusion. Have you ever seen that happen?
Not really. I mean, we have editors here, and so there's always editing that goes on, but not really. I don't think that's really comes mind.
Okay, well, I was kind of referencing in my mind the lady that, and I don't recall, I haven't owned a TV in 30 years, but she was a reporter for one of the TV news channels. And she resigned and she, after writing some particularly bad articles, some of the people that I respect thought, but she just got so filled up she couldn't take it anymore, and she made a comment that she wasn't really given an opportunity that she thought she deserved to write what she thought. She was pretty much told what to say.
Okay.
And so that's why I thought maybe you could offer some. You haven't seen anything like that yet, or do you expect it, or?
I mean, I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Chris, do you have anything that you'd like to ask Eli?
Well, I'm not clear on the area, and perhaps I learned that from the conversation that you're going to be writing partly on foreclosure fraud and other.
Possibly. I have high hopes, Chris. He hasn't made a commitment, I don't think.
Well, it's certainly. Did I hear you say you're 34 years of age, Eli?
I'm sorry, I'm having a really hard time hearing you.
Okay, Chris asked if you were 34 years old.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, and I knew that was correct. Yes, Chris, he's 34. He graduated from the University of Maryland, right?
Yeah, in the big picture, he's kind of a youngster, but he's a pretty grown-up male. So, if he's intrigued about learning about these things, I'm generally happy to share the knowledge that I've acquired through my due diligent and judicious, extensive study of these matters. Far beyond those of most attorneys. I'm shocked to say, but I'm afraid it's true. And I am very, very, let's say, deeply studied into the operations of our so-called court system. And I discovered much treachery, treason, and criminality. In fact, if you were to look at a case called Balzac, that's Bravo, Adam, Zebra, and Charlie.
Chris, he can't hear that.
I can't make out anything.
Yeah, our networking. Right. You aren't having any trouble hearing me, though, right?
No, I can hear you fine, but I can hear Chris. I really can't make out any of the words he's saying.
Okay. Well, Okay, well, then I'd have to relay it. He's having trouble hearing you, Chris. We're still working out some of the bugs in our communication system. But we got two people on at the same time, which is a plus. Uh, uh, I know what I interpreted Chris to be saying. It's funny. I was just getting ready to send him the article that you sent me more in depth, and he's on another email account I have, and up pops Sarah Palin's warning to GOP power brokers. I think, I don't know if you'd agree with this, Eli, or not, but it seems to me, and the people here at Radio Tribune radio station, we know that it appears that American public are getting a little upset with being their public servants and the people in the positions of authority, that they're just getting a little upset with the integrity and honesty. They just wonder if they're ever being told the truth, in other words. So and of course, Sarah Palin, I guess, was saying the same thing to the GOP power brokers. Did you have any political science background at all, Eli?
I mean, that was my undergraduate degree was political science, but
Great.
I haven't.
That was mine also before I went to law school.
I haven't done anything with it lately.
Oh, you're using it every day. Don't even think that for a second.
My whole world out here is real estate. That's pretty much all I think about and talk about.
But it teaches you a lot about mankind, and I think it teaches you to ask questions that you need to know or want to know the answers to. People have accused me of that with my law degree. I've never stood for the bar anywhere. I got to my last year in law school, and I discovered that the system was way too corrupt for me to be even being involved in. At least at this point, I think we can change it. I don't know how long it'll be, but I just decided that I was not going to get in a situation where I was dependent upon that license that could be taken away from me because somebody didn't like what I had to say. They believed in freedom of speech, but they just didn't like my speech. So that's kind of where I was coming from. But I would encourage you to don't even think that political science undergraduate degree doesn't come into play every day. Probably you just don't even recognize it.
Right. That's true. Listen, Stephen, I hate to be rude, but I actually have something coming up in about 5 minutes. I didn't realize that I didn't think I'd be talking to you guys here for so long. So sorry about all this. I got to jump. So
I appreciate the time that you've given us, and I'll be in touch with you. I'll definitely, now that I got your email, I'll be emailing you, and you'll probably, I would be willing to bet, like I told you, you'll get something from Chris, and we'll see where this heads. I wish you to have a good weekend, and I appreciate your time.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Take care.
All right, you too. Bye.
Okay. Chris, are you there?
Well, I'm still here, yes, Steve.
Oh, okay, great. You never can tell, and I stayed away from the buttons this time, and Clark was right on top of things. You're still here. I got a feeling if I'd have done that, you'd be gone. You'd be in the ether.
Well, I was certainly attempting to suggest that I would be glad to act as a confidant, mentor, or perhaps researcher to aid Mr. Eli in his literary accomplishments he's looking to do for this Tribune, and gladly do so. In fact, I've already been doing some occasional guest articles, if you will, Tribune myself. I have a great amount to expose on the anti-personality rate here in the judicial system in our federal courts and other locations here in Clark County about. It truly caused surprise to America because I consider and critically read new cases each day that I read a little more aware or adept, as they might call it, than the common person would. And so I'm able to discern a lot of treachery and treason, warlord trickery that occurs in these courts and how they run through their schemes. And I've got a great amount of research that I personally conducted diligently that's revealed how they do it. And if people are interested, and I think there's a call an audience for that sort of information, I might be encouraged to share it in the interest of justice and due process that America seems to be shortly plagued with because the abject corruption of the bar taking over the court system has resulted in a near obliteration of any equal access to justice or equal justice under the law that was supposedly guaranteed here in America, which now might be the UN America.
Well, look, my take on it is that they're picking us off one at a time. You know, everybody is worried about their particular case, and of course they should be. But we have to create a mindset where, look, folks, if they're coming for this guy, if this guy's got a cashier's check and he can't cash it, the law requires him to cash it. And they said, forget about it. It's only $1 million. We stole it. Go home and be quiet. Be a quiet slave. You know, how long is it going to be before they come for you, folks? You know, I made reference to the starting of the dictatorship. I know that we have another guest here now that Eli's left. I wanted to kind of take a break. Chris, I don't know if you're familiar with this individual. He's been a contributor. The Shadow. I'm sorry. Last time he was Mr. Anonymous, I think. But that's okay. Whatever's right.
For the intellectually alert individual, yes.
Yeah, and so he said here.
I still have a pulse.
It's patiently, and I hope to think he listened to the discussion. I was wondering. I thought he maybe could contribute his take on what he'd heard so far, and I don't. Chris, you said you had to get going before too long, but I certainly want to give him an opportunity since he came into the studio this afternoon. And would you have any take on what you've heard so far about the foreclosure situation?
Well, with all the acronyms, I thought I was in the military again. But no, it's unfortunate. This is a topic that I really haven't stuck my feet in per se. I have some people that wanted to hire me to look into it, but
I think one of those was me from time to time, right?
no, actually, you mentioned it to me. We've talked about it a couple of times, but at the time I was working for another law firm, and I was pretty much tied up doing post-conviction things at the time, and my schedule was pretty full. But I did develop a gap in my time there, but they wanted to pay me a minimum wage to look into this, and I just.
Are those illegals knocking down your standard of living?
No, well, no, I'm not sure the illegals are knocking down my standard of living. They're basically living off of my standard of living.
Oh, there you go. Well, don't worry. The governor's only doing it because he cares about you.
No, but what we're going to do though, Chris, is I'm going to do another show here pretty soon, and we're going to be talking about private property rights, which is kind of down this way, but more focused on water rights in the state of Nevada and the war that's been declared on Nevada citizens by the governor's office and through the state water engineer. So it's going to be pretty ugly. But there's a case right now at the Supreme Court. That's been the opening brief has been filed, and it's gone through some considerable gyrations already in the case because, it's basically saying a lot of things that people don't want people saying.
I've heard it said, I think I've heard it said that if you control the water, you control the land.
The land.
Yeah.
So just right on, I pay attention to this, and there's some strong suggestions that if we're paying attention, that the UN is on a global water grab, and particularly, I think it's T. Boone Pickens, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, and others are trying to lock up the waters of the U.S. here under these conscription programs of the policies of the head of fourth branch of government's agencies, whether it's the DOJ or the EPA or there's just so many agencies, Forest Service and the water departments are all being bought by foreign corporations. And many of our waters are being shipped out of America to foreign countries that may not have our interested part, and then we've got fracking and the pumping of poisonous chemicals into the ground to contaminate the aquifers, which would create a clear and present danger to the national security and certainly a danger to public safety, as we saw in Michigan and likely many other communities in America.
Chris, what are you a quasi-expert or an actual expert on fracking? Because I know it's coming to a national prominence, that technology, or at least acknowledged as national information. But I'm just wondering, I know I don't know anything about it. I'm not even sure that I know what it is. It's some type of a way of extracting something from the ground. I think Donald Trump has said that Ohio, where Kasich is from, that's the reason why his state is doing so well. That they were one of the first states to get into that, and I think Donald was making reference to the fact that it maybe should have never been done. Do you have a take on what that's about?
Well, I have quite a bit of grasp of knowledge and facts about fracking, although expert's not a term that I would apply myself, although it might be a perfect conversation, in that an expert is an old drip formerly under pressure. Well, and truly fracking, in my estimation, is a pretensive illusion of drilling to supposedly fracture the substrate matrix of rocks to release gas pocket formations that might be entrained in those that could be accomplished by the expansion of those rocks, injecting them with fluids. However, the nature of the fluids they're injecting them with, thanks to Bush chaining cabal, creating the illusion that it's national security of what they're putting into their consideration, which is a pretensive cover to keep from having to disclose to the public what is truly dangerous and hazardous, perhaps even deadly in many cases, group of chemicals, a concoction, if you will. We do know that there are maybe lubricants, surfactants. Some suggest that there are radiological dangerous products being injected in there. There might be fluorides, fluorosilicic acids, perhaps waste from other products that are going on, and we just really don't truthfully know everything that's in there. Although some people, we've seen the gaslighting movie on TV where somebody turns on their faucet and gas comes out.
Chris, I've actually seen somebody sent me an email, and I watched the video. The lady goes to the sink and turns on the water, and fire spits out of the spout. It was more than gas; it was on fire. That's that could spoil your whole day if you're looking to make some hot tea with some water and you get a bunch of fire instead. But that's I have no idea how that could happen, or it's some way that they're doing something to extract something that would be otherwise much more difficult. Is that the bottom line on it, that they're
well, that's part of the scenario. It's actually more complex than that, in my esteemed observation. We know that many of the states around where this fracking is going have relationships to the New Madrid Fault. In particular, I have some land in Oklahoma that I've recently had some allegations by the building department that some of my rocks on the side of the house, stone house, were cracked and I had to repair them. Well, my suggestion to them was, I think that whoever authorized the fracking that was exacerbating and escalating the earthquake occurrences should be the one responsible for that, not be the homeowner.
Interesting. The person that does the damage should pick up the tab for it. That's an interesting concept. I think that's pretty prevalent in law.
Well, you'd certainly think so, although if they can massage the inference of whose responsibility to the victim, which is pretty prominent these days, blame the victim is a real common occurrence as I see, kind of like the Bundy situation and the Hammond situation and the militia situation. They were victims which were abused and attacked and assaulted, violently so, and the one victim was murdered. And so these were actually victims of aggression by the so-called federal agents of the government, at least people who were acting as federal agents of the government, or they may have been contract mercenaries for the countries or other forms of terrorists of the local thing that were wearing uniforms and operating under license of the federal government and the agencies under the executive office, the Administrative Procedures Act 5551D of the United States Code, the Administrative Procedures Act of, I think, 1945. I could be wrong on the year.
Well, you're leaving out the letters of marque and reprisal.
Okay, explain
familiar
what that is.
Are you familiar with those, Chris?
What was that? I didn't get it.
Are you familiar with letters of marque and reprisal that Congress has the authority to issue?
Boy, I'm really trying to listen hard, but for some reason you're a little far away from the speaker or something, and
yeah.
just not quite picking up fair enough. Maybe you can translate for me, Steve.
Well, I'm gonna.
Mark and reprisal. The Congress.
Letters of marque and reprisal.
Reprisal, yes, absolutely. Also, when we get letters to privateer,
That's called
also
black
what
water.
they're sometimes called. Mark and reprisal, I think, has to do with a license to take a ride.
Well,
And
also, it has a license. It's a license to do anything lawful or unlawful, and cross international boundaries or of any kind, and do whatever Congress determines is in their best interest and their policy to do.
it's
So,
kind of like 007, license to kill or anything else necessary or properly in their interest.
well, they're privateers,
Yeah,
basically, or
privateers, exactly right.
privateers, pirates, whatever you want to call them. You know,
Certainly pretty close.
if they were in the rap business, they call them be looking for booty.
It's kind of curious, if you look at the word conspiracy, it could also be conspiracy. And I think that's more accurate.
Well, letters of marque and reprisal. A few years ago, I was talking to a couple of detectives with Metro, and they were having considerable difficulty. There was a holdup in a bar. It used to be called. It used to be a police bar that was held up by three or four Mexican nationals, and everybody there, since it was a police bar, everybody there basically had a gun on them. Mr. D's, that was the name of it, and even the band playing that night was called Pigs in a Blanket. So they came in and robbed it with guns, and apparently they shot somebody, and they wanted these guys real bad, but they couldn't figure out a way how to cross the international boundaries and get them. And I said, well, call Harry Reid, get a letter of marque and reprisal. They didn't even know what it was. And I explained to them what it was, and they said, that means that a letter of marque and reprisal allows you to go into any foreign country and snatch somebody, kidnap them, bring them back to the United States. Noriega, for example. And then, of course, they censor the trial. You can't talk about all the money laundering you've been doing for the congressmen and for the military and all that. You only talk about all the things that we say you're guilty of.
Exactly. Well, I know Chris is heading for the courthouse, and you sent me an email last week regarding a kind of a march or a public get-together. Folks, that may happen again. Last Sunday was a great day, if you remember, because of the weather. I'm sure that if they conducted that, it was very, very difficult. But I think if you decide you want to get on my email list, this is one way you do it. CT911@mail. Mail, M-A-I-L. That I get regarding any demonstration or any information. I know Michelle obviously won't be calling between 3 if they're going to have the hearing at 3, but I talking to her assistant or associate. She didn't really know what time the hearing was. I guess Chris has provided more information on that. I know that Michelle does a show tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock on KDON, Walk the Talk, where she encourages she encourages all of us, not just talk a good fight, but go ahead and get out the boy pants and big girl pants and get some, what are you gonna do? Guys, what are you gonna do about Eric? What do you mean? What am I gonna do? What are you gonna do in the next 20 miles? Maybe you ought to think about doing something in the days ahead. Chris, if you have anything, so I appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you so much. It's time to hit the road and get down there, and if I get any updates you want or observations that I think are relevant, I will certainly get back hold of you and Clark there and provide you and the listeners with my report.
And Chris, just so you know, I believe there's another scheduled prayer vigil, praying for the Henderson Jail, again at 1 o'clock. So my understanding is, in spite of there was 27